Hello and welcome back to Nonprofit Megaphone Training. Today we'll be going through the process of setting up the Google Tag Manager and using it in conjunction with Google Analytics to record events. This is also called event tracking, and it's a very nice way to more granularly track individual actions that users are taking on a website. So for example, people clicking buttons, clicking links, watching videos, downloading documents, things like that, which are typically great to track as goals because it gives you a better sense of not only what pages are people viewing, but what are they doing on those pages. In this example, we're going to be using the Nonprofit Megaphone website, and we're going to be tracking a specific type of click. So we're going to be tracking people who, on the home page, click this button to schedule a free consultation. We'll do specifically this button and use that as an example that can be generalized more broadly. But for this example, we'll focus on this button right here to schedule a free consultation. So to get started, we're assuming that you have Google Analytics set up and that you have access to it, that you have the ability to put the Google Tag Manager code into a website, which you can also edit or look at the source code of if needed. But then nothing else is set up yet. So we'll take it from the top, beginning here. So to begin, I've gone to tagmanager.google.com, I'm logged in, and this is the very first page where I'll be creating a new account. So for this example, I'll call it Nonprofit Megaphone. And the website URL is just nonprofitmegaphone.com. We'll be using this container on the web, and I'll click Create. Accept the terms. And our new container has been created. Google Tag Manager prompts you with the code that you can use to install it. In this case, I'm going to be using a plugin that makes it a little bit easier to install the Google Tag Manager code. I've already installed it here, and that just allows me to paste in the Google Tag Manager ID, and I'll hit save. If you go to plugins within WordPress and search for Google Tag Manager, you'll see this one. It's called Duracell Tom Google Tag Manager, something like that, and it'll install. So click Save Changes, and everything is saved, so that is great. I'm now going to reload this page, just the home page. I have the Google Tag Assistant Chrome plugin, which you can install as well. It's just a simple Chrome edition that allows you to look at what tags are installed and how they're performing. I'll enable it and then refresh the page. Let's see, we have 2 tags found. Google Analytics, which I have installed separately, and then Google Tag Manager, tag failed to fire. Could be due to an empty or unpublished container. So this is great. We have not published the container yet, but we are seeing it here, which is good. I'm going to go ahead and publish. Google Tag Manager uses a version control type approach. So you'll be editing, changes will accumulate, and then you can push those changes, which deploys them out. You can also preview them before you deploy. I'm just going to submit right now. Call it initial submit. And now the container's been published for the first time. We'll go back to the workspace. And just to see what happens, I'm going to reload the home page. Check the Tag Manager. And let's see what happens. Great. Okay, so the error is no longer there. We'll see this non-standard implementation, which is fine. It's because we're not putting it exactly where Google wants us to using the plugin. But in our experience, tends to be just fine. Perfect. So now we have installed the overarching code for Google Tag Manager, and from here we can add tags using the interface, which is very nice and convenient for us. Tags have two components. So the tag is the message that is communicated to Google Analytics when a certain event happens, and the trigger is the logic that determines what events trigger what tags. So to begin, we'll actually create a trigger, and we're going to create a new trigger, and I want to trigger just when people click this button. I'll right click and inspect, which will show me the HTML behind this button. So right here you can see the class is Fusion button text, schedule free consultation. For this example, what I'm going to do, I want to know when people are clicking exactly this button. So not any button, which will have Fusion button text as a class. For example, this one up here would, or any other button. I'm going to go and actually add an ID to this. So I'll edit the page in WordPress. This is not strictly necessary. If I wanted to track any button clicks, I could just use this class as the filtering characteristic. But just as an extra level of tutorial here, I'm going to add an ID to specify specifically this button as an example. So we will edit the page. We can see the content here, and here's the button. Schedule a free consultation. I'm going to add a CSS ID, very long and specific, that does not exist for any other button, and we'll click update. Okay, so now that will assign an ID to this specific button, and we'll use it to filter. The next thing to do is to make sure that the appropriate variables are enabled. So we'll go to variables and click configure, and this will show us the list of different variables that we can use as components of our triggers. So I'm going to go ahead and enable all of these. We won't actually need forms. Oftentimes you will need forms if you are tracking form submissions, which is a great thing to do. Here, different variables for videos and scrolling and so forth. The most important ones for our purposes here are the click variables, which I've enabled all of. Okay, so now we will go to triggers and create new. We will call this consult button click, and we will choose a trigger type just by clicking this white pane, and we will go down to all elements. This trigger will fire on some clicks, and we will filter based on the click ID, which we just specified. So click ID, we can leave it as contains, and is end of page consultation button, which is what we had just specified. We'll click save, and now that trigger has been created. So this trigger will filter for events that happen when someone clicks an element with the ID containing end of page consultation button. Okay, now once that is done, we will go to tags, and this will be the tag that we're going to create in order to pass the message to Google Analytics that this specific button has been clicked. So we'll create new. We can call the tag Google Analytics consult button click. and we'll start configuring the tag. So we'll use Universal Analytics because that's the version of analytics we have installed. This is typically what people will have unless they have a very old installation of Google Analytics, and they should probably be upgrading to Universal Analytics anyway. So Universal Analytics, then we'll go to, stay here. We will go to the settings. We're not tracking a page view, we're actually tracking an event. And now we want to input the event tracking parameters, and these will be important for the future when we tie everything together in Google Analytics with a goal. But I will ignore those for a second. You'll see down here Google Analytics settings, select a settings variable. We'll actually override settings, and we're just going to give it our Google Analytics tracking ID, which you can find here. I'm logged into Analytics by going to the admin page and the tracking info under property, and the tracking code gives us the tracking ID, which we will enter here. A more robust implementation would be to make this as a variable, and you can reference it as a variable, but for now we'll just manually paste it in. Okay, so let's specify the components here. So our category we can say is consult button, action is click. We can leave the label blank for now. I'm actually going to say console button homepage bottom to be very specific, action is click. We'll leave the label and the value blank for now. More settings. There's a number of other settings here. For this scenario, we don't actually need them, so we'll just leave that as is. Advanced settings, we also do not need as well. So we will just leave this as it is right here. Then we'll go to triggering, and we'll choose a trigger. We can either trigger this on all pages anytime someone views a page, which we do not want, or we can use this trigger which we've created, console button click. We will select that trigger. You can add an exception, which we do not need. You could add another trigger, which we do not need. So we'll just go ahead and click Save. This has now been saved, so we have our tag. You can see in the overview that we've made a number of changes. What we're going to do now is test this. So we'll click Preview, which will bring Google Tag Manager into preview mode. And then what we can do is open up a new tab. Here we have our new tab with the Nonprofit Megaphone website open. We're in preview mode, so this Tag Manager pane will appear on the bottom, which shows us the tags fired and not fired on the page so far, and then with each event. Over on the left, you can see the different events that are happening as they happen. Every time I click anywhere, you'll see a new click is recorded. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and then I'm on a Mac, so Command, which will open the link in a new tab so that we can still see everything and don't lose this page. I will click on it. We'll see a new click. Oops. Has happened, and as you can see, the tag fired on this event is GA console button click, which is perfect, just as we expected. Now we're getting some interesting behavior here. It looks like when I click on the words, the tag is not fired, but when I click on the button, the tag is fired. So the reason is I realized that I put the ID which has the identifying ID onto the broader element, but not specifically this A element, which has the link itself, which causes behavior different than what we'd want. So after this, I would probably go back and I would apply that ID more thoroughly. So this is just a great example of the importance of testing and understanding exactly what level you're applying things at, especially when working with CSS and IDs. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So in the A element, which encapsulates this entire button, we do have the end of page consultation button, but it's not within the span here, which is the text itself. So if people click on just exactly the text, they'll trigger the event, and if they click on the button at large, they will trigger the event, but if they click on the text itself, they will actually not. So I would go back, I won't for the purposes of this video, but I would go back and edit it to probably include the ID here as well, just so that both scenarios are covered. But we now have a tag and have triggers that are more or less successfully triggering it appropriately, which means that we can now turn to Google Analytics and set up conversion actions, which will allow us to track when that event's fired and record it as a goal conversion. So I'll go over to Google Analytics. I will go out of the admin screen, which we were on previously, and go to conversions, and then goals and overview. This is where goals are reported, and our goal now is adding a new goal to that. So I'll actually go to admin, and then under view, we'll click goals. We will create a new goal using custom, since it's not one of these predefined goals. We'll give it a descriptive name. In this case, I'll give it a name like schedule button bottom of home page, and this is an event. We'll click continue. And so now category action label value, you'll remember that we put these into the Google Tag Manager as well. So let's go back to our tags and copy and paste over exactly what it was that we had for those elements. So the category is this, console button, homepage bottom. Put that as the category, and the action is click. And we will click save. And now our goal has been created. So the next step is to test and see if this is actually working. So I'm going to go over to real time. See one user on the site. I'm filming this later at night, so currently just me on the site. I'll go to events, which gives us tracking for events. Now you can see that one conversion was tracked a little while ago, a few minutes ago. That was when I clicked it, which is good. So now what we can do is I'm going to take this page and split it in half, which will allow us to see both the events happening and the website at the same time. I'll make the website even smaller. Okay. Now before I do this, just to make this an appropriate test, I'm going to go back to Google Tag Manager, and I'm actually going to go to Workspace, and I'm going to submit. So this will push the changes that we've been working on live. Give it a descriptive name for what this version represents, and then click Publish. And now this is published, it is live, and everything is all ready to go. I'm going to open up a new incognito tab, so no cookies, nothing that could possibly interfere. We'll go to nonprofitmegaphone.com, load the page. I will scroll to the bottom to where the button will appear. I'm going to click. We know that you have to click in a specific place, so I'm going to click in that specific place, and then we will go back to Google Analytics, and you can see that right there, 15 seconds ago, An event was recorded for consult button homepage bottom, and it has just happened, which is excellent because that is exactly what we were hoping. If I go back and I click it a number of times, I'll click it 3 more times, we'll see what happens. And you can see 3 more events, 2 in that moment and then 1 in that moment, are flowing through as well, which is perfect. It's exactly what we were looking for. You can see them all tallied here. And that just about sums it up. So in conclusion, the approach to setting up event tracking is first, ensure that you have Google Tag Manager installed. You can install this on your website, either using the code provided by Google or in environments like WordPress through a plugin. We used a plugin in this example. You then understand on the web page what are the characteristics of the button or link or video that you want to be tracking. You can tag them with a CSS class or ID, or find an existing class or ID that they already have. You then, within Google Tag Manager, make sure that the necessary variables are enabled, which allows for the different types of clicks to be parsed from each other. You create a trigger, which describes the conditions under which the tag should be sent to Google Analytics. You create a tag and associate it with a trigger. You can preview that, make sure it's working using the debugging tools built into Google Tag Manager, and you can also view it using the Google Tag Assistant. Once that appears to be working properly, we go to Analytics. We set up a goal under the admin and then goals page, and then you can use the real-time view in Google Analytics to click on the button and watch the conversions flow through moments later. Thank you so much. I hope this has been helpful. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions, and best of luck setting up conversion tracking using events and Google Tag Manager. Take care.